Good morning and welcome to a chamber check-in webinar that we have today to talk about dealing in these uncertain times. We have with us today a special presenter. We have Dr. Margaret Sergeant with Behavior Associates. Maggie earned her doctorate in counseling psychology from the University of Louisville and her certification in behavior analysis from Florida Institute of Technology. She's a member of the American Psychological Association, the Kentucky Association for Behavior Analysts, and the Kentucky Psychological Association, where she served on the board in 2018 and 2019 as the Western Kentucky representative. She is an adjunct professor with Brescia University and is excited about teaching in their upcoming master's program. Fantastic. She's the owner of Behavior Associates, providing behavior analysis, psychological assessments, and psychotherapy services. And while they do specialize in autism and intellectual disabilities, they're currently expanding their traditional services. Dr. Sargent, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. Okay, now I'm going to try this sharing the PowerPoint. Hi, everybody. All of this new technology and telehealth is very new to me, so bear with me if I mess up the PowerPoint here. So I wanted to kind of emphasize in this webinar today, mostly taking care of yourself and paying attention to how you feel and what you kind of need to watch for as anxiety and depression and other mental health issues are increasing during this time. So, again, anxiety, depression are impacted by what we're currently experiencing, the social isolation, economic stress for many of you out there that are running small businesses and seeing funding going down, fear of infection and feelings of uncertainty. Everybody kind of wants to know when this is going to end. A question that we can't answer at this point. So you definitely are not alone. In addition to anxiety and depression, substance abuse issues are increasing for people. I read an article the other day that talked about the victims of domestic violence and abuse are finding it harder to get out of difficult situations. And then many studies are looking at all of these symptoms that people are experiencing at this time probably are not going to just go away when things get closer to normal. All of these are in addition to typical stressors that we have on a daily basis. Routines are being interrupted. Just our lives don't feel normal. So for me, I've gone from working for about 60 hours a week to trying to work from home and learning how to do telehealth for the first time ever. Humor helps, right? So I'm sure if you look at all of the little windows, you will see yourself in one of these areas. You know, I've put makeup on for the first time in weeks today to do this webinar. So humor does help if that is an outlet for you. What to watch for with anxiety. So typically, diagnoses are made when we have symptoms that are interfering with our daily lives, causing us not to be able to function as we normally do, which makes this situation kind of unique, because this is basically just a disruption for all of us. However, the symptoms still hold true. I'm not going to read all of them to you, you can read. But if you are finding yourself experiencing increases, just pay attention to your body. You don't have to have all of the symptoms listed to be struggling with anxiety. And you don't have to be at a point where a diagnosis would be needed to reach out for help for anxiety or depression. If you find yourself worrying uncontrollably, that would be a time when you need to reach out to someone. Feelings of depression. You may be experiencing some of these. People with anxiety and depression prior to all of this are really experiencing increases at this time. A lot of what they say to do for anxiety and depression don't really fit nowadays because we can't keep our normal routine and we can't get out and connect with other people. But if you notice changes in sleep, excessive feelings of sadness, or struggling with thoughts of self-harm or death, those are times when you definitely need to reach out and get some help. If you are living with your family now, you want to be watching for those things also with them. So watch for any big changes in personality or how someone behaves. And don't be afraid to ask people about what you're noticing. A lot of people that have committed suicide, their family members have said, I wish I'd asked. I noticed some of these things. I think it's a word that just we struggle to get out. But if you really see someone struggling, ask them if they're contemplating suicide. Start having conversations like that. I know that in Owensboro, we've had a few suicides in the last week. Young men are most at risk. But just definitely don't be afraid to ask someone how they're feeling or what they're struggling with. Okay. So the problem with our current situation, humans are social animals. So we're basically hardwired to connect with other people. Isolation and loneliness are things that are very typical for how people experience depression. And now we're kind of all stuck in a situation where we're isolated. Even if you're living in with family members or staying in touch with close friends, it is definitely not our normal social routine. If you know people that are alone during this time, find ways to reach out. I've noticed a lot of people out there getting very creative about how they're connecting with someone. So substitute video chatting if you can. Social media can be a really powerful tool. However, social media does come with some possible problems during this time. So be mindful of how social media can make you feel. Being alone on your phone is not necessarily using that social media to connect with others. People are spending a lot of time reading about the coronavirus and watching the news diligently, whether it's watching the governor every day at 4 o'clock or constantly reading those news pop-ups on your phone. Some of that can cause more stress than help. So really pay attention to whether or not reading those things increases those feelings of anxiety. And don't be afraid to log off, or if there are people in your life that getting on that social media with them causes you a little bit of stress, don't be afraid to limit that, or for the time being, not spend as much time with those people. So one thing that a few people have talked to me about when I started saying I'm doing this presentation. Social media can make you lose social context. So if you are engaging with people on social media, text groups, communication is key. So if you're feeling anxious about some social media context that you've had, worrying that a friend is upset with you, worrying that you've said the wrong thing or texted the wrong thing, don't be afraid to ask. And don't be a slave to your phone. It can be really easy as we're all stuck at home and trying to manage kids and animals and significant others. Those phones kind of give us an outlet, but make sure that you're not just doing that. Okay. So, today we're going to talk a lot about how to take care of yourself and how to take care of each other. Okay. So basically, knowing what is typical for you is very important. As I started doing this presentation, I realized that I've been guilty of a lot of these things myself. But I think now more than ever, it is really important to kind of stay connected and follow routines as much as you possibly can, and doing things just that you know can make you feel better. So getting enough sleep for you, your children, just the household can make, getting enough sleep helps with those feelings of anxiety and depression. This is changing a lot of things for us. I read that people are having unusual dreams during this time. So it is definitely interrupting our REM sleep. But trying to follow a routine, what you normally would do, find some physical activity. So I'm not a very athletic person, but I am definitely trying to get out of the house, walk around, do a little exercise in the home. Eating healthy during this time is very important. Avoiding tobacco, alcohol, and drugs. I think that those things have definitely increased during this time. I'm not saying don't have a cocktail, but watching your intake, making sure that those things are not increasing during this time is really important. Alcohol sales have gone up. I'm not sure if that's because we're drinking more or because we can't go to a restaurant and sit down and have a cocktail. Limiting screen time and basically just making sure that you're relaxing and recharging, whatever that means for you. So that's very personal, right? And what makes one person relax definitely doesn't work for everyone. For those of you who know me, I've been doing some hot yoga at my house. Most people would not find that relaxing. But for me, it's definitely the way that I can relax and recharge. Keeping your regular routine, very hard during this time. I've heard lots of people who say, okay, we're all staying up very late and my kids aren't getting to bed, and then we're sleeping in the morning and then trying to do some schoolwork. But if you can get you and your children on a regular routine, that would be really helpful. Not only for them, but for your mental health. Having that time at night when all the kids are in bed or the dogs are put up, to give yourself some time. Again, limiting your exposure to the news media. If you find that you're reading all day long about the pandemic, then you probably need to find some other activity. Staying busy. I know that a lot of people I've talked to have said, oh, we're, getting some cleaning done that we haven't done in a long time. I found my 1996 taxes the other day in a storage. Basically trying just to stay positive. Using your moral compass and spiritual life, if that's what works for you, and setting priorities. So getting together with the other people in your house and figuring out what you think would be a good thing to get into while you're stuck at home. For those of you that aren't stuck at home, I think that also brings on a whole set of worries, worrying about your significant other that's outside the home working, those kinds of things. So be watching for how all of that is making you feel. I think that the key is knowing yourself and your body and making sure that you're paying attention to all of those things. Okay. For those of you, I think it's probably most of us as chamber members who were working outside the home and now we're at home taking care of all of our kids. For me, mine are grown. I've got a house full of dogs though, who aren't used to having me around. So I think the days can feel longer. And I think for everyone, we just need to make sure that we're taking some time to recharge and doing what we know we need to do. So a little bit about trying to manage kids at home during this time. Again, keeping a schedule is really important. Keeping in mind that it's a team effort. So taking some time to think about what you and your significant other need. You can get kind of in a rut staying at home and hanging out all day, but make sure that you're really paying attention to what other people in your house need as well as yourself. Talking to kids about the coronavirus. Don't give them any more information than they ask for or is age appropriate. So kind of being mindful that you're not having the news on all day with them hearing information that's going to then make them worry. And making sure that you take some time for each other. Again, that's kind of if you can get the kids in bed, have a date at your house, and making sure that you're giving each other a break. So that's part of scheduling. So definitely guilty of all of this myself. But it would be a good idea if you sat down and kind of said, what do you need? So communication is key. It is really important that we're talking to each other, that we're not just watching Netflix or watching the news all day, but that you're getting together and saying, what do you need? What can I do for you? Really important during this time. So focusing on the things that you can control. We can't control what's going on with the pandemic. We don't know how long it's going to last. Everybody kind of wants the answers to those questions as we worry about our businesses out there. But focusing on those can make you feel drained and anxious and overwhelmed. So if you notice that you're doing that, just getting yourself back into a pattern where you're really focusing on what you can control with yourself and in your house and in your community. Just some little techniques for dealing with anxiety and depression. Making a list of how things in your life are disrupted and how you're feeling overwhelmed. Trying to make a list of all those possible solutions. There's not going to be a perfect one during this time, but trying to make sure that you're taking breaks from your stress, that you're focusing on concrete things, things that you can solve and change, rather than all of those things that are out there that are beyond our control. After you look at all of your options, drawing up an action plan and reaching out to others if you need help with that. And then if you can find one that fits for you, take up a relaxation practice and get help if needed. So telehealth and therapy in general is really not as scary as it sounds. If you are really feeling overwhelmed and stressed and depressed, there are plenty of companies out there in Owensboro that are doing telehealth now. We're learning a lot about how that works. You don't have to have diagnosable anxiety and depression to reach out for help. Therapy can be just a general problem-solving kind of situation. You can do it once, you can go, and if it doesn't feel comfortable, you don't have to do it again. So just knowing that that option is out there for you. I know that a lot of people that are feeling stressed and anxious are reaching out to others, finding a way to contribute to your community really also helps those feelings, those internal feelings of anxiety and depression. I know there are plenty of people out there that are in need of help at this time. Get creative and involve your kiddos or other family members in your house. And I think it's very important for all of us to kind of come together during this time and take care of each other as well. So thank you so much for having me. And I told Candace, if anybody needs anything, please reach out. If you want telehealth, great. There are other people besides my company out there doing that. But if you just want a little advice about certain situations or you have additional questions, I'd be happy to help with that.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sergeant. And thanks everybody for joining us today. I found this very helpful personally and professionally, and I'm sure everyone else did too. And we have lots of good advice that we can move on with and hopefully get through this time. We miss all of you. We look forward to being together with you one day very soon. Take care and have a great day. Bye-bye.